Good morning. It's Hump Day. You know what that means. Time for the Southern California Writers Association Hump Day Book Tour. I'm your host, Maddie Margarita, here with Diana Pardee on tech. Every Wednesday at 10 a.m., the Southern California Writers Association turns our Facebook page over to a different author who'll share their bio and talk a little bit about their work. This morning, we welcome Kathleen Krevat. Kathy, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Let me tell everybody a little bit about you. Kathy is the author of the Gourmet Cat series featuring cat food chef Colbie Summers and her demanding cat Trouble, as well as the best-selling chocolate-covered mystery series under the name Kathy Aarons. Her short story, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which I absolutely loved and adored, was published in the Crossing Borders anthology by Down and Out Books in March 2020. Kathy lives in San Diego with her husband of 29 years. When she's not writing, she's a political activist and volunteers with the San Diego chapter of Sisters in Crime and youth arts organizations. She also performs stand-up comedy now via Zoom. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, it sounds like you're busy even through the pandemic.
Yes. I think it helped keep me somewhat sane.
Well, speaking of insanity, let's talk about writing. Tell us a little bit about the two series you did, but I'd like to hear about that. But first of all, why did you decide to write cozy mysteries?
I didn't even realize I was writing a cozy mystery before I started. When I first got my agent, she's the one that said, "Hey, your voice is cozy mystery." And I was like, "Oh, I guess it is." I think a lot of people go into it thinking that they're writing traditional mysteries. But then I, totally embraced the whole cozy world. What I mostly like about cozy mysteries is creating that cast of characters that you get to revisit, and this, especially I write fictional towns, so it's something that I like when I come back to writing a book in the series. I always enjoy that.
So it's funny when someone says you have a cozy mystery voice. What does that mean?
Usually, I would think a humorous tone. Especially I write strong female protagonists who are, solving the mystery and doing all the work. But yeah, not a lot of sex or violence on the page. It's not zero, but it's very calm, I guess, on the page.
Oh, just like you, Kathy.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first series was the chocolate covered mystery series, which I love the description. And it's funny, I was reading excerpts from that, and I so wanted to be. I think the one I read was the Halloween party.
Yes, behind chocolate bars. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, chocolate bars.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted so badly to be there. I could just picture how it looked, how it smelled, the comfort of being there.
Yes.
How do you do that? How do you create that kind of environment? Does it come naturally to you, or do you work at that? Is that like a second draft kind of thing, or?
Oh, I don't. My first drafts are normally very much the mystery, the plot, and then I layer in the 5 senses details later. But writing about chocolate is pretty easy for me. Yeah, I worked with a local chocolatier here in San Diego who makes these amazing art, gourmet chocolates. And I would just decide, I have to go over there and get some for inspiration, and then be able to.
Oh, that's cheating. That is so cheating.
Yes, and that's what people said about the series, is that you better have chocolate nearby if you're reading it, because you're going to want to eat it. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So when you worked at with the chocolatier, what are the most surprising things you found out, or doing the research for the book about chocolate?
Most surprising, for me, seeing her do the artistic parts where she, spray paints colored chocolate across the molds, and then, then fills it with chocolate. It's a very labor intensive, especially the way she does it. This is a Dahlman's Chocolates, Isabel and Knack, is yeah, very labor intensive. I don't know. I mean, you are going to expect that she has to love chocolate, you know, and anybody that goes into that has to do it. But that yeah, the
It's like
different
an
flavors.
art.
Yeah, yeah, and also the different flavors she would bring in, you know, ginger and curry. I mean, so that I didn't realize, you know, was going to be part of it. And she was so willing to share her knowledge and her recipes. It's her recipes that are in the books. So that part was very
Okay,
fun. And then there's all the other parts about running a small business that she has to focus on as well. So
which is kind of interesting when you have somebody who has an appreciation for something and approaches it almost as an art,
yes,
has to use access the other side of your brain to actually make a living doing that, just like writing.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. The other thing that was interesting is how many, when she was getting started, how many other local chocolatiers helped her, you know, to understanding the business. And I felt like that's the same thing as in writing, where you have so many published authors that are willing to help, you know, newbies.
yeah. Well, you're so involved in so many things, and you volunteer your time to help a lot of other people. So I hope everybody, in addition to looking at Kathy's books, will appreciate how generous she is with her time. So you wrote your first series. So let's talk about that. There are 3 books, right?
Yes, Death is Like a Box of Chocolates, which was very fun to write. They're all very fun to write. But the first book that you get published is really always very special, you know. And then Truffle to Death,
Trouble.
Behind Chocolate Bar. So, you know, very cute titles, great covers, and yeah, very fun to write. And then
So you published that,
mhm.
and then how did we get to the second series? What transpired?
So my agent, Jessica Faust from Bookends, was in San Diego for a writers conference, the SDSU writers conference. And I said, hey, why don't we go on a hike? You know, because I live near the Torrey Pines State Park. And I had these ideas for the family for the next series, but wasn't quite sure of the hook, you know. And so during this hike where she's in fabulous shape and I'm not, we up and down hills, we kind of like brainstormed this idea of a woman who starts a gourmet cat food store, you know, so or company. So that's kind of where that nugget of the idea came from. And then, you know, I went from there and did a proposal and she sold it.
So that's Colbie Summers, right?
Colbie Summers, yes.
Okay.
And so she was a single mom, had a difficult relationship with her father. So I kind of had all of that envisioned at first. And her father's ill, and at the time my father was ill. So it was all, and I wanted it to be grounded in family, in community, like a lot of cozies are. So, and that's where it started. And
So what makes Colbie different from, is it Melissa? I can't remember your protagonist in the, oh, come on, don't do that to me.
Michelle, oh no, it's the ADD. I can blame everything on that. What makes her different? They're different ages, kind of different backgrounds. So Colbie became pregnant, you know, 18 in college, and Michelle does not have children. But they're both very strong, you know, determined small business owners, I would say. So
great. So so you wrote how many books in that series, in the Colbie Summers? 3.
Yeah.
Is that series done, or can we expect to see more from that?
With Lyrical it's done, but I am considering, you know, I get emails once in a while saying when's the 4th one coming, so I am thinking about writing a 4th one. So
okay, so and then you had a writing project after that, right?
You're talking about the
anthology.
Yeah, the anthology. Yes, I started writing some short stories actually when The Trouble with Talent was coming out. I decided to take a 6-month break from writing novels, and I started writing some short stories. And yes, I had a short story published in Crossing Borders. So it's called One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and it's a kind of a noir story about a demigod of flu that comes to a small town in Ohio, and you know, it's there on a mission to kill somebody, but arrives to find that person already dead. So it wants to solve the mystery of how and why that happened. So this, was of course written well before the pandemic, and the plot of The Trouble with Talent involves a college admissions scandal. Which we know was written well before that came out. So
ripped from the headlines. Oh,
yeah, except for before the headlines, like real life follows fiction. So yes, I'm going to be very careful about what I write next.
Yeah. I'm before I buy any stock, I'm going to check with you. So the story in the anthology, people talk about writing, the difference between writing short stories and writing novels. I personally, I think writing short stories is a good short story is more difficult because you have to be so efficient and so economical and so clear. How did you, and I just love that story. I mean, the twists and how we relate to an inanimate object, how you help us get in there.
Yeah.
How did you write that story? How did that come about?
I kind of don't remember the beginning of it. I often remember the inspiration of stories, but I just don't. I just started.
Does it just come to you and you just write? I mean, is it easy for you to write, or
no.
Outline person, or
I think it was easier to write before becoming published, because then you never expected somebody to actually read it. So I have to deal with a lot of, thinking about it and worrying about it for a while before I sit down. And it's almost like to the point where it's physically impossible to finish by my deadline by the time I sit down and write. But I do a lot of plotting. I don't necessarily follow it. But I have to know, I have figured that out after the first book I had written that took 7 years. It's called PTA Meetings or Murder. And I like deliberately wanted to keep it open who the villain is. And that was just a mess in terms of planning and everything. So I like to know who the bad guy is and why. I mean, I think I figured that out pretty in depth. And then, so the plot itself, where I have clues and where they discover information, that can change along the way of actually writing it. But I do quite a bit of plotting ahead of time.
So are you going to continue to write cozies?
The book that I am kind of working on right now is actually a young adult thriller, but I do think I will go back to cozies. It's hard for me to write it without a cozy voice. That's what I'm finding. And it's in no way a cozy, because the central crime involves human trafficking. So I think that's going to be one of those things where I'm going to have to go through, and I edit many times, and I'm sure I'll have to go through and layer in, I'm going to say like a grittier, edgier quantity or quality.
So when, just so everybody knows and can get a good sense of your books, how do you, or what do you want people to feel when they finish one of your books?
Oh, so I love focusing on opening lines. So I have some pretty fun opening lines, and the feeling at the end that justice was done, and that I sometimes like cry at the end myself when I'm writing it, because I want, it to have family involved and community involved, and and also tying up all the loose ends. So these are really interesting questions that I've never had before. But I do like, a happy feeling at the end. Definitely happy ever after, even if Colbie's, sitting on her couch recovering from injuries. So.
And one final question. So you finished The Trouble with Talent, right? Is that the last one that you've written in that series so far?
Yeah.
So how do you leave them open so that you can write another book? Or do you have that in mind when you end?
For both third books, I knew at some point during the writing process that they were the last in the series. So I don't like to leave a lot of, one of the things is a romance has to have some type of ending, some type of happy ending at the end of the third book. So, and it can continue from there. You have to think of it in a 3-book arc. So, but for a mystery series, there's always something that can happen. Like I have characters that were introduced in earlier books get in trouble, in the third book. So, so there's always that opportunity for the main character to stumble over a dead body. So
you have to be careful where you walk in your books.
Yes.
So, but one of the things I also noticed was that this is they're primarily mysteries set in a cozy setting. Sometimes you read cozies and they're cozies that just happen to have a mystery in them because there's so much character and so much setting and so much personal dynamics between the characters. But I think at the heart of yours, there's also a mystery, which I think is great for mystery readers.
Yes. To me, that is the focus. That's the first thing that I do write is what happens with the mystery. And then I will layer in, the more of the cozy aspects.
Okay. So if there was one hint that you wanted to leave the writers, I think we have a lot of readers here with us, but also writers today. If you had one writing hint that works for you, that you think people would benefit from, what do you think that might be?
So I heard this at a writing conference, and I say it in a lot of my talks. I have done writing workshops mostly for the high school kids, and that nobody expects to be able to just get a bunch of clay and create this beautiful work of art in sculpture. So I think a lot of people start writing thinking, I know how to write an email, and I read a ton, I know how to write a novel. And it's an art form that you have to learn, and that I think anybody can learn. If you spend enough time, there's so many resources now. And so I think just writing, continuing to learn about writing is the best way to write. But somebody mentioned this at a writing workshop once, that that writing is like swinging a golf club. Like everybody thinks they can just swing a golf club. And there's actually 70 things to learn in one swing. So that's kind of like writing. There are so many things you have to learn about writing, and some of it you already can do really well. Like some people are born with the ability to write dialogue or setting, but they have to learn all the other things. And so you just have to learn those things and you will be able to write. So.
Okay. All right. Well, great. I want to thank you so much for taking time to be with us this morning. And if anybody wants
for having me
to read more by Kathy, we've given you links to her books. You can find them in the comments. If you have comments or questions for Kathy, you could go ahead and put them in the Facebook comments section. She will be visiting there and commenting and answering your questions. So that's fantastic. And also, if you would like to hear her, she does stand up now on Zoom in San Diego, right?
Yes, Dr. Mo's comedy show.
Yeah, so you can hear her do her stand-up. So she's an all-around Renaissance woman. So thank you, Kathy. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you enjoyed today's event, you can go to the SCWA Facebook page and watch the videos there, or you can go to SCWA Writers Online, our YouTube channel, and watch them there, and hopefully you'll like and subscribe. So we hope that you have good writing and good reading, and stay safe, and we will see you next time. Bye.